From sipping squirrel stew to downing marshmallow-topped sweet potatoes and, yes, hauling tons of jelly beans into the White House, this is every U.S. president's favorite food, and some of these choices are so odd, you'll wonder how a few of them even made it to lunch, let alone history books. Let's start with George Washington, the original breakfast influencer. Every morning, without fail, he ate hoecakes, which might sound sketchy, but they're just simple cornmeal pancakes. At Mount Vernon, his step-granddaughter claimed he'd scarf down 3 small cakes each day, each one soaked in melted butter and honey. They weren't just tasty, they were tactical. Washington's teeth were in such rough shape that he'd de-soften the pancakes until they were practically drinkable. Next up, John Adams, the cider guy. Like most New Englanders, he started his day with a tankard of hard cider. But Adams didn't stop there. His favorite dessert, apple pan dowdy, a spiced pudding drenched in molasses and baked apples. So between the morning cider and evening dessert, Adams basically turned into America's first Apple influencer before Instagram existed. Ow. While Adams was fueled by apples, Thomas Jefferson ran on mac and cheese. During his years as America's envoy in France, he fell in love with macaroni and Parmesan, and even brought home a pasta machine. In 1802, Jefferson shocked guests at the White House by serving a baked macaroni paella, cheesy ancestor of the modern mac and cheese casserole. He even drafted handwritten recipes for creamy macaroni pudding. Honestly, Jefferson was America's first food blogger, just with a feather pen. As for James Madison, he kept things low-key, but his wife, Dolly Madison, made dessert history. She turned ice cream into a national obsession, serving flavors like strawberry, apricot, and, believe it or not, toyster. Okay, the oyster flavor turned out to be a myth. But still, the Madisons even built an ice house on their property just to keep the good stuff frozen. Rivals joked Madison cared more about Dolly's desserts than foreign affairs, and, honestly, if you had endless ice cream in the 1810s, you probably would too. Then came James Monroe, whose comfort food was spoon bread, think, a custardy, scoopable cousin of cornbread. At his Virginia plantation, spoon bread was practically a sidekick to fried chicken or ham. Soft, warm, and loaded with butter was Monroe's idea of home on a plate. But unlike Monroe, John Quincy Adams preferred the garden route. Fresh fruit, apples, plums, pears, whatever grew nearby. Visitors expecting grand feasts were often greeted with, well, fruit salad. And just when you think things can't get any simpler, wait till you meet the next president, whose favorite dish had a name as tough as his reputation. If you thought corn cakes and cider were strange presidential breakfasts, wait till you hear about the president who ate something called leather breeches. If you thought fruit salad was tame, meet Andrew Jackson, the man who preferred his meals frontier style. His favorite dish? Something called leather breeches. Don't worry, he was on tea gnawing on pants. It's actually a southern dish made of string beans dried in their pods and cooked with bacon fat. Salty, smoky, and chewy. It was the kind of rustic food that fit Jackson perfectly, tough, simple, and a little wild. Moving on to Martin Van Buren, America's first president born after independence. His go-to comfort food was oysters. He loved them fried, stewed, or raw, basically. If it came from the shell, Van Buren was on board. He even served elaborate oyster feasts at the White House, turning what used to be fishermen's food into a classy delicacy. Next up, William Henry Harrison, who didn't live long enough to enjoy much, just 31 days in office. But before pneumonia took him down, Harrison was known for simple meals like squirrel stew. Yep, real squirrels. Frontier cooking at its most intense. Back then, it was normal food for settlers, but today, that recipe would probably get you banned from every cooking show on TV. Then came John Tyler, whose favorite meal was Virginia ham. Cured, salted, and smoked for weeks, it was the centerpiece of almost every dinner at his plantation. And Tyler didn't just love eating it. He was known for gifting huge hams to guests as souvenirs. Imagine leaving the White House with a chunk of smoked pork in your bag. Now, James K. Polk kept things old school. Southern cornbread, bacon, and buttermilk were his essentials. He had a strict routine and didn't drink alcohol or play cards, but when it came to food, he was pure country comfort. After him, Zachary Taylor, another soldier president, had equally rugged tastes. He loved kala, a type of New Orleans rice fritter, fried golden and covered in sugar. He'd eaten them during his years in Louisiana and never got over them. Then there's Millard Fillmore, who helped make the White House's first official library, but also loved one thing above all: soup. Is obsessed with hearty soups and chowders, especially mock turtle soup, made from calf's head and spices. Sounds rough, but back then, it was considered a luxury dish. And speaking of soups, Franklin Pierce was fond of fried clams, another New England classic. While James Buchanan, our only lifelong bachelor president, had a soft spot for cabbage and coleslaw. I'd pile his plate with it during nearly every meal, simple, heavy, and homey. Finally, Rutherford B. Hayes. He loved corn pudding, a warm, custardy mix of corn, milk, and butter. His wife, Lucy Hayes, nicknamed Lemonade Lucy for banning alcohol, would serve it at every formal dinner. Corn pudding became the quiet star of her dry parties. If you thought squirrel stew and mock turtle soup were odd, wait till you meet the president who loved possum on toast and another who couldn't live without steak. By now, you've seen cornbread, cider, and even squirrel stew, but things are about to get a lot more interesting, starting with James Garfield, who had a surprising soft spot for squirrel soup. Yeah, apparently squirrel was the unofficial mascot of early presidential dining. Garfield's favorite version was slow-cooked with potatoes and onions. The dish was so popular in Ohio at the time that people joked he ran on a squirrel-powered campaign. Next came Chester A. Arthur, a man known for his style and his seafood. He adored roasted mutton chops and oysters Rockefeller, the kind of high society dishes that matched his reputation as one of the best-dressed presidents in history. Arthur ate late dinners, loved fine wine, and probably spent more time perfecting his menu than his speeches. Then there's Grover Cleveland, a man who could eat like a lumberjack. His favorite? Corned beef and cabbage. He'd eat massive portions and was once teased by his staff for finishing 2 full dinners in one sitting. Cleveland was also a fan of pickled haringa dish, he said, reminded him of his childhood. Let's just say portion control was not his presidential strength. Benjamin Harrison, on the other hand, was all about corn. Corn soup, corn muffins, corn pudding, you name it. His Indiana roots ran deep, and he treated corn like it belonged in every course. Harrison even had it served at state dinners, proving you can take the man out of the Midwest, but not the Midwest out of the man. Then came William McKinley, who loved meat and coffee. His go-to meal was a simple steak paired with a cup of hot black coffee. In fact, he drank coffee with nearly every meal, which probably explains how he stayed awake through endless political meetings. His wife, Ida, often served him steak sandwiches at home, simple but hearty. Now, Theodore Roosevelt took hearty to the next level. His favorite food? Steak? Lots of it. He preferred it nearly raw, thick, and bloody, as he called it. Roosevelt also loved game meats, bear, venison, and even moospa, because of course he did. The man hunted half the menu himself. One guest said dinner at Roosevelt's felt more like eating at a hunting lodge than the White House. And finally, William Howard Taft, America's biggest president in more ways than one. His favorite dish was roast beef with gravy, often served with buttered potatoes and rolls. Taft loved breakfast even more than dinner, reportedly eating steak, eggs, pancakes, and coffee every morning. He once admitted, "I must learn to eat less," but history says he never quite mastered that skill. If you thought raw steak and squirrel stew were bold choices, wait till you hear about the president who made fried chicken a national obsession and another who turned jelly beans into 2. White House decor. After all that steak, squirrel, and soup, America's presidential menu was about to take a sweeter turn, starting with Woodrow Wilson. Wilson, who led the country through World War I, had simple tastes. His favorite meal was chicken salad on toast, served with a side of deviled eggs. He wasn't into fancy desserts or heavy dinners. In fact, his doctor often forced him to keep things light. So while his speeches might have been long, his lunches definitely weren't. Then came Warren G. Harding, whose love for fried chicken was legendary. He liked it Southern style, crispy and golden, paired with mashed potatoes and gravy. Harding was so obsessed that his staff joked he'd trade political favors for a good home-cooked meal. And rumor has it, he even had his favorite chicken recipes served aboard his presidential train. Calvin Coolidge, nicknamed Silent Cal, also kept things plain, but had one surprising favorite: pickles. He ate them with almost every meal. Coolidge once said he liked food that didn't talk back, which makes sense because, well, neither did he. But he also enjoyed Vermont maple syrup and would pour it over everything from pancakes to bacon, a sweet and salty combo before it was cool. Next, Herbert Hoover. Before the Great Depression, he was a millionaire engineer who had traveled the world, and his favorite food was sweet potatoes with marshmallows. He reportedly served them at every Thanksgiving, and once said they reminded him of home. It's unclear if that comfort helped during the Depression, but hey, at least dinner was cozy. Then came Franklin D. Roosevelt, who loved grilled cheese sandwiches. Despite living through some of the toughest years in history, FDR's favorite comfort food was as simple as it gets: white bread, melted cheese, and tomato soup on the side. His wife Eleanor tried to make the White House menus healthier, but Roosevelt always found his way back to grilled cheese. Harry S. Truman was the opposite: no nonsense, straight talk, and well-done meat. His motto: only one thing worse than being hungry, being late for dinner. He loved country ham with red-eye gravy and a big breakfast of bacon, eggs, and toast. Then there's Dwight D. Eisenhower, who not only enjoyed food, he cooked it himself. His favorite dish was beef stew, slow-cooked with vegetables and wine. Ike even had a personal recipe written in his own handwriting, which he'd make on weekends at Camp David. Growing up on a peanut farm in Georgia, Carter's favorite snack was, of course, peanut butter ice cream. He once had it specially made for state dinners, proving you can take the man out of the farm, but never the peanuts out of the man. If you thought peanut butter ice cream was sweet, wait till you meet the president who made jelly beans a national symbol, and another who took his fast food cravings all the way to the White House. By the time we hit the modern era, presidential menus looked a lot more like everyday American kitchens, with candy, burgers, and pizza making their way straight into the Oval Office. Starting strong with Ronald Reagan, the man who turned candy into a political trademark, his favorite, jelly beans. It started when he quit smoking. He used jelly beans to fight the urge for cigarettes, but it didn't stop there. As president, he had jars of jelly beans in every meeting room on Air Force One, and even gifted custom red, white, and blue jelly bean jars to world leaders. Reagan once joked, "You can tell a lot about a fellow's character by the way he eats jelly beans." Then came George H.W. Bush, whose favorite snack was pork rinds. Crunchy, salty, and unapologetically simple. He loved them so much that sales of pork rinds in America actually spiked after he mentioned them during his campaign. But he wasn't all snacks. Bush Sr. also loved broccoli soup, even though he famously banned actual broccoli from Air Force One. Talk about mixed signals. Next up, Bill Clinton. In his early years, he was a fast food fanatic. Big Macs, barbecue, and Jalapeño cheeseburgers were his go-to comfort foods. Reporters used to joke that Clinton never met a drive-thru he didn't like. After heart surgery, he switched to a plant-based diet, but the legend of his burger days still lives on. George W. Bush kept it classic with Mexican food. His favorite meal was cheese enchiladas with guacamole and salsa. He once said that nothing beat Texas-style comfort food after a long day in office. He also had a soft spot for peanut butter and honey sandwiches, which he'd often eat as midnight snacks. Now, Barack Obama, the cool, calm, basketball-loving president, had an equally chill favorite: chili. He used his own personal recipe, loaded with turkey, beans, and a secret mix of spices. Obama loved cooking it for family dinners, and even served it during campaign stops. He also enjoyed pizza and salted caramel ice cream, because yes, even presidents need cheat days. Then came Donald Trump, whose food habits were, well, uniquely Trump. His absolute favorite, McDonald's. He loved Big Macs, Filet-O-Fish sandwiches, and Diet Coke. In fact, he once ordered over 1,000 fast food items for a White House event. Trump also had a thing for steak. Well done with ketchup. No fancy sauces, no frills, just ketchup. And finally, Joe Biden, America's current commander-in-chief and lifelong ice cream lover. He's been photographed with cones in hand at campaign stops, press events, even Air Force One. His go-to flavor? Chocolate chip. Biden once said, "My name's Joe Biden, and I love ice cream." And judging by how often he's holding it, he's not kidding. From hoecakes to hamburgers and squirrel stew to chocolate chip ice cream, every president's plate tells a story.